Hi.
Hi. So I am Raven Rose of Moon Medicine. I'm an herbalist, and my focus is on menstrual health, ancestry, and I also work with a few other medicines like Convo.
Awesome. And I'm Leah Samuels of Moonlight Offerings. I am an astrologer and an artist and an educator. I live here in Denver. And together we're Black Moon Mysteries.
Yeah, and today we have a wonderful little report for you with full of information about the dark moon in Cancer and also some herbal support to go with that, and just some things that you can do to prepare yourself and make the most of the energy that's happening in the sky right now.
Yeah, we really wanted to talk about this solar eclipse and eclipse season coming up as well, because this is a significant astrological experience. Eclipse season happens every 6 months, so it's not something that's super rare, but enhance it does enhance the typical new moons and full moons and lunar cycle that we go through each month. It kind of adds a lot of energy to it. So we wanted to talk about how you can best use this energy and navigate this, and we wanted to offer some herbal support and just kind of insight into what's going on astrologically right now. Yeah. So currently, as we're recording this, we are in the dark moon phase of the lunar cycle. So the dark moon is the 3.5 days before the new moon. And it's really a time where people start to feel pretty tired typically, because we're preparing for a new cycle. We're releasing the energy of the old cycle. And I think in our society, it's really hard to stop and take a break and rest. And that goes along with the energy that's coming through with the solar eclipse, even the new moon on July 2nd. Just being open to receiving and really looking at like where are our blocks toward receiving and being receptive, because there's a lot of information that can come to us when we're still or resting or allow ourselves to have that type of care.
And then also, I think with this energy, there's a tendency to like keep pushing forward um, and maybe like drinking coffee to just stay awake and get things done. And instead of doing that, really take this time to listen to your body and slow down a little bit, and maybe replace that cup of coffee with a cup of nettles tea. And nettles are really great for just nourishing the entire body, tons of vitamins and minerals, and also can help you to just check in with yourself and kind of slow down a little bit. And that's really a big part of the energy that we are working with right now.
Yeah, and I'm definitely guilty of that, like just drinking coffee instead of slowing down to keep going. And that's really connected with this nodal axis that we're working with these eclipses. So we're tapping into the signs of Cancer and Capricorn. So currently the South Node is in Capricorn, and the South Node represents where we're kind of, it's I see the South Node as like our core desire and what we're wanting, but when we pursue it in the way of that sign that it's in, we're going to lose energy rather than gain it. So when we look at Capricorn and what Capricorn's wanting, it wants to be productive, it wants to push through. It's associated with the structures in our life that don't necessarily promote self-care, but value achievement and productivity over that. And when we're looking at the sign of Cancer, we're looking at bringing in the energy of rest, and that how that actually feeds into us being even more productive, because we need to be balanced. And when we continue to push through and be productive, even when our bodies are saying we need rest, we're not actually going to be productive.
Yeah,
you know,
I totally get that.
Yeah.
One of the things that actually came up for me last night was I have this bad habit of doing this thing where I reward myself for getting a bunch of work done, when really I should be rewarding myself anyway, because I'm doing so much all the time. And rather than waiting until pushing off your pleasure and relaxation until like the end of the week, include more of it in every day. And so for me personally, I'm working on my morning routine and getting better about doing things that are really nurturing for me and make me feel good, rather than like pushing through, working really hard, and then eventually one day when I get this long list of things done, then I'll take care of myself. That's one of the things that I've noticed that I have a tendency to do.
Yeah, I think a lot of us can relate to that, and I think that our society, like, structurally isn't set up to support rest. So, like, we understand that not everyone has all of this, like, luxury time to rest.
Just
you
take
know,
a nap.
it's really not common. So
Yeah.
I think even two of the things that I want to bring up around that is, like, even if you don't have time for it, really switching your mentality to believe that you deserve it. And I think that that's really where a shift can happen, where you believe that you deserve rest, and that you deserve to feel peace in your life, and that you deserve to feel at ease and not so stressed out all the time. And I think that belief in deserving that and worthiness can help shift, like, even take small moments in your day to just even practice breathing, or to, like, text a friend and, you know, tell them what's going on, or a family member, you know, and really just valuing emotional care as necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so important. Yeah.
So what else do we want to talk about? So the solar eclipse is coming up. It's a new moon in Cancer on July 2nd at 10 degrees Cancer. So I just wanted to kind of look at, what does the solar eclipse mean in astrology? So this is a total eclipse. So when we have a solar eclipse, we first of all are working with, like, the energy of the sun and the moon. And the sun really represents the energy of the ego and vitality, and the moon represents our soul. And so when we have an eclipse of the sun, we're kind of revealing parts about our ego and our identity that maybe we haven't been conscious of in our usual lives, or it's something that we didn't want to see about ourselves, so we kind of push it away. And so don't be surprised if these, like, old patterns of behavior, because Cancer represents our family history and our past, if these old patterns of behavior start coming up and you're just like, whoa, I didn't realize I was still doing that, or I didn't realize I still felt that way toward myself, or just these old kind of coping skills that you used to use. And this is actually really good to be aware of these things. So instead of saying, what's wrong with me? Why am I behaving this way? Instead, kind of have some gratitude that it's becoming conscious, and you can think of it in terms of, like, oh, I'm becoming aware of these patterns because it's time for me to break them. It's time for me to move on from them. And that's been really powerful for me lately, because I've been noticing that I'm really aware of the thought processes and the words that I choose. And this is something that I've worked on for a long time, and I'm noticing that with this energy, it's like, even though it may be something that you thought you've worked through and it's come up before, and you thought maybe you processed this already, it's like, no, there's still a little bit more there to kind of, and I think it really comes from that family element, and that family connection. Absolutely. So I just kind of want to read this sentence that I wrote about it, because I've been thinking a lot about Cancer in terms of the archetype for Cancer being the crab, and we have the crab shells, and the shell is created to protect vulnerability, right? So we hold on to our shells, and whether it's kind of looking at, are these shells of protection, defense mechanisms, and coping skills, or are they created out of love, our loving boundaries to, like, hold our soul, right? So those are kind of two different ways. So I wrote that we're breaking through protective shells designed by our ego in order to create new levels of protection for our soul's growth. So this can really be connected to, I've been thinking about like the molting process, and like when crabs find their new homes and their new shells, it's kind of like that moment of growth is very uncomfortable. You feel exposed, you feel vulnerable. But what eclipses do is it speeds up the process of growth. So it's saying, yeah, it's time for you to create structures in your life that actually support who you're growing into. And that's super vulnerable to step out of your comfort zone and create, put yourself out there, create something new in your life. But that's really how growth happens in event. And because it is an expansion, you're going to feel eventually more at peace than continuing to use those same coping skills and patterns that you've outgrown and that might have been relevant for your survival at one point but no longer are.
Yeah, that's really powerful.
Thanks, Raven. So yeah, protection versus defense mechanisms.
Yeah.
Right?
And then also as far as herbs go, when we're thinking about protection and defense mechanisms, one of the things that I think is really helpful is to really focus on releasing doing active things that you can do to release those things. And one of the things that I think of is working with an intention. And because it's Cancer and there's that association with water, putting your intention into like the tea that you're drinking. So now you're doing this nurturing work for yourself, and say you're having your cup of nettle tea, putting your intention into the water as you're holding that cup before you drink it, putting the intention out that you'd like to have some clarity around stepping into, this new version of yourself and being able to have clarity around what it is that you're releasing and why it's no longer fitting for you. So working with intention, asking the herbs to come in and help with that clarity is something that's really powerful. And I can't tell you how many times I've done this and you really notice the impact of working with intention when you're working with herbs, especially in this tea form with the energy of Cancer, because you're working with that water element as well.
Right. That's so great. Cancer being a water sign, which represents emotions, which represents fluidity and change, right? That's really beautiful. Yeah.
So the other thing that we wanted to mention is that this is also very much connected to ancestry. And with ancestry, when we talk about our family and our DNA and the things that we carry just through our blood, those are things that are maybe harder to see and understand because they're so close to us. And during this time, there will be situations, it could be really, for me, it's been dreams. They're dreams about the things that I have been carrying with me that come from my DNA, that come from my lineage. And this time is especially great for gaining clarity on what those things are and how they're actually helping or hindering in my day-to-day life. So for me, I love to work with herbs, and one of the herbs that I have been working with lately is an Artemisia plant. And I like to call it Neptune's Artemisia because one of the ways that you identify it is by the trident leaf. And this Artemisia drencanculis, is one that for me has helped me to see why I stepped into the bloodline that I'm in and why I've stepped into the family and chosen this family that I have. So being able to release some of the negative thoughts around how I'm taking care of myself, or how I feel about my body, and all of those things have been really powerful at this time. And working with herbs in that way is really powerful. So that could be as an herbal tea. With the Artemisia family of plants, you could also work with something like mugwort, and you can add a pinch of mugwort to your tea. You can sleep with it underneath your pillow, or you can hang, if you have a sprig of it, you can hang it over your bed. So be prepared to have some really intense dreams when we're working with mugwort, especially during this time, because when we work with a plant that is associated with the moon and associated with Neptune, when these things are heightened and activated, we get so much more from the plant and so much more from that connection. So really lean into working with these plants. And one of the things that I like to do when I am working with a plant during this time is to connect with the spirit of the plant. And to do so, it's really simple. You will basically say you have some mugwort and it's just dried mugwort. As you're holding it in your hand, sit down in a really quiet and meditative space and place, and ask the spirit of that plant to come in and fill the space around you. And just pay attention to any of the feelings that come up, any sensations in your body, any pay attention to like any of the energy centers, like the chakras that could feel tingly. Pay attention to anything. Say, for example, I've had a long history of doing a lot of work with my my menstrual cycle, and I used to have really horrible cramps, and now they're much better. But when I am connecting with a plant that has a lot to do with my with that area, that root chakra, that sacral chakra, I'll feel like some warmth there, or I may even feel a little slight pinch. And basically that's the plant saying, hey, this is the area that we're working on. And for some people, it could be a feeling like maybe feeling scattered in the mind, maybe feeling like you can't have your eyes closed, you have to have them open to have more clarity or to be able to see. All the things that you feel, just pay attention to all of that. And once you feel like the messages that you've received from the plant are complete, then just say thank you to that plant. And then now you have that open connection. And when you are working with this plant for, say, 3 nights in a row, you can ask the spirit of the plant to come in when you are making your cup of tea or before you go to bed, and you're placing that plant either underneath your pillow or hanging it above your bed or something like that. And these are all things that just help you to connect to your own body and your intuition, but also help you to connect to the energy of the plant that you're working with. And be prepared to write down your dreams in the morning, have your journal next to the bed, and it may take some time to decipher what the dreams mean, but the herbs do help with making things more clear. And one of the teas that you can make for this time is a tea that is really helpful for dream work, helpful for clear dreams, and dreams that are very easy to distinguish. So it's 2 parts of Tulsi basil, 2 parts chamomile, 1 part lavender, and 1 part mugwort. And mugwort is something that you should not use in pregnancy because it does stimulate uterine contractions. But if you still want to work with the energy of mugwort, you can definitely put it into a little satchel and put it underneath your pillow, and that can be your dream pillow. And then, like I said, just pay attention to any of the dreams that come through and know that they can be connected to how you're taking care of yourself, the things that you're shifting out of, the patterns that you're shifting out of, and also they can be connected to your ancestry and your family ties.
Yeah, beautiful. We've both had dreams connected to our ancestry lately, and that all just is super relevant, even astrologically, to what's going on right now. We have, first of all, the moon is at home in the sign of Cancer, so this new moon in Cancer is really amplifying the lunar energies, and the moon is connected with dreams and our past. And then Neptune currently is trine the North Node as well. So Neptune is playing a huge role in our evolution right now, and Neptune is associated with dreams. It is associated with spirituality. It's also really connected with this concept of source energy and unconditional love. And I think that that's also very connected to this idea of boundaries and shells and coping skills and setting new patterns into place for ourselves, because we're looking here and seeing how the new patterns that we want to create are ones that are connected with this concept of loving ourselves more. So we're setting patterns into place that are created out of love versus out of fear and defense. And I think that the concept of receptivity comes in through that, because we really want to, oftentimes we feel like with setting intentions, we have a lot to do. There's a lot of like ritual and practices, and all of those things are helpful and supportive, but we really want to tune into the energy of receptivity so that we're not pushing ourselves really hard, so that we are really just being more open. And that's what dreams are too, because we're in a state of complete receptivity. I mean, sometimes our dreams certainly can feel very active as our subconscious is working through a lot, but we're sleeping, and that's when a lot of information can come through to us. And we've also been discussing how the solar eclipse almost has a dreamlike state to it, even in waking life. And there is something about the eclipse in that kind of obscuring of the solar conscious energy that can make us feel like we are receiving messages from our intuition in our waking life as well. So pay attention to what's coming through for you. Yeah, write down your dreams.
Yeah, definitely. Dreams are definitely the ultimate state of receptivity.
Yeah.
So also one of the things that you can do is just, as you're drinking your tea, if you have the opportunity, and if you can, go outside and just be under the stars, kind of let down all of your walls, really connect with your body, and actively like see yourself releasing anything that could be weighing you down, and allow yourself some freedom, allow yourself some space to breathe, and just really kind of drink in the energy of the night, and while you're enjoying your tea. And yeah, that's a really great practice. Just spend some time underneath the stars in the sky, and in that dark space where you're kind of preparing yourself for that receptive and really powerful space to be in, to dream.
Totally. And I want to say too that if you notice that you're trying to be receptive and you're noticing your walls and you're noticing the things that are blocking that out, rather than try to like push them away or tell yourself you're wrong for experiencing that, the way to really heal that is to apply compassion toward yourself for having those coping skills in place, because like we said earlier, they came from somewhere. And so we kind of have to be the parents to our inner children during this time, which is a very Cancerian theme as well. Like having compassion for those parts of ourselves that have a hard time receiving is the only way to open them up and heal them. We can't just like bully them away, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
So, yeah, one of the things that I wanted to mention, I've been reading a little bit about the astrology of dreams in this book called The Astrology of Dreams by Beth Koch. And one of the things that she says is that Neptune dreams shed light on some of the most important and potentially neglected areas of your psyche, our creative and spiritual selves. These dreams can also center around your self-deceptions and escapist tendencies it takes lots of courage, perception, and self-awareness to see the heart of many Neptunian dreams. So, some of these dreams may be challenging, and some of them may bring up things that have been kind of like a soft spot for you for a long time. At least that was my experience in the dreams that I've been having. But just know that these things are coming to the surface because they're being processed, and we're going through a time of really big change.
Yeah, and ultimately, I really see this new moon too as really like change that we're ready for. So even if you feel like you're being kind of thrown into this change quickly, it's on a subconscious level, on a spirit level, it's change that you're ready to step into. It's growth that on some level you've asked for. So, and just remembering like that change is vulnerable, right? And that's the main kind of trait of Cancer, is this vulnerability. And without vulnerability, we can't grow, we stay the same, and we can't heal either unless we're honest with ourselves about what we're trying to even heal. I like some of this too. Like we were kind of just discussing like things to kind of ask yourself about, I guess, questions to work with and grapple with under this dark moon moving into this solar eclipse, which the eclipse like kind of maintains the dark moon energy along with it, because it is working with shadows and darkness, and that is connected with eclipses and the dark moon. So this energy is just going to carry through throughout Cancer season, and then the Mercury retrograde too, which is also working with unconscious energies and integrating them. So some of the things we wanted to kind of just have is like dialogue with yourself is around worthiness, around self-care, which we kind of touched on. A lot of people who are Cancers or embody Cancerian energy have like kind of, I want to just talk about the caregiver complex around giving a lot. And sometimes we give in order to avoid dealing with our own issues, you know? And also people who are, probably if you're watching this, you're on some sort of healing path or wanting to work toward healing, or our healer or caregiver in some capacity, and how that is such a like life-giving energy when you're working in service to others, and that a lot of healers that I know forget to kind of return that same thing to themselves. And so that's also connected with worthiness, and how do we fill our own cups. And I did this ritual recently where I was, sending protection out to another person, and I realized that I was feeling a little bit depleted, so I lit another candle that was for myself. And a few hours later, I was sitting and like feeling that like care and protection toward myself, and it's not something that I usually like give to myself, and just that energetic like exchange like from myself to myself was really powerful for me. And just if you think about like what would it feel like to know that someone is sending out love toward you, that someone is sending protection, and of course in society that extends toward actions of protection, but even energetically sending that loving energy out to someone, like think about what that would feel like to receive that. And you can do that for yourself too.
Yeah, that's really important. And that's a message that's been coming up for me a lot lately, just learning to not just give. I give people a lot of advice in my practice and tell them, okay, do this herbal bath at this time, and slow down, do these things to take care of yourself. But a lot of times we don't end up doing those things for ourselves. And because of, again, the Cancer energy and the water energy, this is a really great time to work with water in the form of herbal baths. And it could be a spiritual bath where you take a shower and you pour this herbal tea basically over you at the end of the shower, and or you can take a traditional bath to just take care of yourself and do something that feels good for you. And some of the herbs that are really nurturing during this time for self-love would be hawthorn, rose, or rosemary. Those are all really great herbs of love and also a little bit of protection. So that's something that you can blend as a 1-to-1-to-1 blend and make it as a strong tea and use it in a spiritual bath or an herbal bath.
Awesome. I love how some of those, just thinking about some of those herbs being connected with the sign of Leo as well, which we also have a lot of planets in. So, yeah, those are totally perfect for this time. Yeah, I think in terms of receiving too, I think like something I wanted to touch on is like the boundaries that we place like toward feeling our own emotions can also block out like the compassion that we even can extend toward other people. And it's clear, like, if you're engaged at all in like what's happening socially, politically, like that compassion is necessary, is needed. Like we can't, although it's so overwhelming to take in everything, we need to figure out how we can have boundaries that allow for our own self-care, but also don't block out what's happening in the world, right? Like, so I think that thinking about boundaries and healthy boundaries and how, like what your boundaries look like and our boundaries around our own emotions and how we can establish, I think that's part of this, like creating new structures for ourselves in our life, like how we can establish boundaries that work for us and learn how to kind of implement them and also pull them back when we need to. Just something to think about.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And especially because there's just so much happening right now. And sometimes I find myself getting wrapped up in, like there's a lot happening and there are a lot of people who are suffering and need help. And for me, I have a tendency to like bleed my emotions out into that rather than doing something that's constructive, doing something to take care of myself instead, which, there are certain things that where I can help, and there are other way. And one of the ways that I have learned to take care of others is to take care of myself and to do things that help me to feel nourished and love towards myself and feel compassion towards myself and just be in a place of greater balance and receptivity and nurturance. That way, when it is time for me to go out and share something or help other people, I'm coming from a nourished place.
Yeah, like your energy is more abundant versus depleted. And I think that goes along with like that experience that I had with like lighting 2 candles, like one for someone else and one for myself. And I think that we do have a responsibility to be engaged with the world. And I think that we also have a responsibility to be engaged in our own healing as well. So how do we balance both? And I think that like Raven and I, like our practice is all about integration and wholeness and not foregoing one thing for another, right? And so I think that it's a really both and situation. Yeah. So
let's see. So I actually wanted to mention some flower essences that you can work with during this time. And flower essences are emotional and energetic remedies. They are made by capturing the energy of a plant or flower in water. And when we work with flower essences, they're just drops, and you can put them into water, you can put them directly in your mouth, you can add them to a bath, you can put them onto your skin. but we basically were inviting the energy of that plant into our own energy field. And when we are out of balance in some way, the plants that we're choosing to work with in flower essence form can help us bring that part of ourselves back into balance. So one of the things that I like to do when I'm working with flower essences is to first do that plant spirit connection that I mentioned earlier, where you just sit with, in this case, you would sit with the essence, the bottle of the flower essence that you're working with, and establish that connection. Invite that energy into your space, see what comes up for you, and then now that you have that connection, go ahead and start working with it. And some of the flower essences that you can use during this time are elm, which is really helpful for anyone who's overextending themselves to other people. So if you're really kind of going above and beyond for other people, but not really taking care of yourself, elm is a flower essence that you can use to help bring that back into balance.
I just want to say that I love how you talk about forming a relationship with the essence first and the plant, because I think that's what Cancer wants to teach us too, is that relationships are our support systems, and that forming relationships is like kind of the top priority right now.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then the other essence is pink yarrow, which is helpful for anyone who takes on too much of the emotional intensity of other people. And this is really a great essence for anyone who is dealing with a lot of family situations right now. And just, we love our families for the most part, and we want to be there for the people that are around us. But sometimes when someone is going through their own emotional kind of work, they have this intensity, and sometimes we end up taking a lot of that on, whether it's it could be unintentional, but by taking all of that on, we are also depleting ourselves. And pink yarrow helps us to have that boundary between being able to be there for someone, but also not taking on everything that they're carrying.
I need some of that.
Because it's important for everyone to, we can help other people, but there comes a point when we have to have a healthy boundary to what that looks like, and know that everyone is experiencing their own journey and their own process. And it's not always the best thing to take on other people's energy when we have our own to work through as well. And then the last one is Yucca. I'm going to call it Yucca because I think Yucca is a different plant. It is a different plant. Yucca is, for me, when I think of Yucca, I think of the root vegetable that, and then this is a desert plant, Yucca, which is helpful for breaking free of old dysfunctional patterns, and then taking responsibility for clearing those patterns for yourself and clearing that stagnant energy. It also helps with bringing compassion to yourself and your family and the people around you. But I think what's really important here is that there's a balance between the compassion that you show to yourself and the compassion that you show to others. So all three of these essences are really great to work with during this time and really moving forward, because when you're working with a flower essence, you want to take it for at least a 2-week period to really see the impact of it. And you can see things pretty quickly and within the first couple days, but to really see a bigger change, I would say take it for at least 2 weeks. And you can take about 7 to 11 drops 2 to 3 times a day. You can put them in water or in tea. It's up to you.
Awesome. Yeah, another thing I want to mention before we wrap up is that if you want to look at your own astrology chart to see where these eclipses are taking place and what realms of experience they are kind of speeding up the growth that is occurring in your life, you can look at which house contains 10 degrees Cancer and 10 degrees Capricorn, and those two houses are going to be the ones that are very activated right now during these eclipses. Yeah, I think the main message is, you know, you deserve care. You deserve to heal from your past. You deserve to feel worthy of connection and love, and so does everyone ultimately.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that's very Neptunian, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's a lot of our problems in the world are from that like lack of care and connection, and also like the systems and structures that have been built around that lack of care and connection. So that's what we're working on healing right now. And we can look into our own past and our own ancestry for our personal work of how we can contribute to that healing, right? We all have a role to play.
Yeah, we do. And I think during this time, though the ancestry piece is coming up a lot, what intuitively is coming up for me is that it's rather than, this is like an opening to delving into that work, into ancestor work. But I think just right now, like this week with this eclipse, I think it's really most important for you to, or for us to look at ourselves and just where we are right now, and the things that have gotten us to where we are, whether it's circumstances, whether it's family, whether it's ancestry. Just be observant of where you are right now and show compassion to where you are right now. And before stepping into the ancestor work, I think it's really important to just be happy with and take care of yourself first, and then open up to that ancestor piece.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I think to kind of wrap up.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a lot. I think we got a lot of, I'm hoping that you all connect to this message, and you can always find us through our personal accounts, and we also have, of course, Black Moon Mysteries, where you can find us on Instagram. And we will be doing more of these for each dark moon. So we'll be inviting you in to future circles like this through online live sessions. So definitely stay tuned for that. Our Instagram is Black Moon Mysteries. So if you follow us, you'll get updates on when we are doing any kind of workshops, rituals, anything like that. And then we do have a really big, amazing workshop coming up in August, and that will be Lunar Mysteries, all about the mysteries of the moon and the menstrual cycle. So definitely stay tuned for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.